payroll.
Okay, we'll bring this county commission meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call roll?
Chair Nathan Likert.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
Quorum.
Okay. Are there any changes? There will be a slight change to the order of business. City on a Hill is not here today, so we will be striking them from our agenda. Are there any other changes that we need to note? Okay, and there will be one executive session at the end. Okay, prior minutes. Anybody have concern over the prior minutes?
Nope, looks good.
Changes.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look through that?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Next, persons not on the order of business. Anybody from the public wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. The monthly financial report. Any comments over that?
I don't have any comments.
Nope, I have no.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Moving right along, we have the Grove Community Center donation. Darren.
Morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. I'll slow your process down a little bit so we don't get out of here within 5 minutes. But next item on your agenda to review is the funding request from Grow Hayes for the Grove Community Center out north of the hospital. And out in the audience today, Doug Williams is here, as well as David Klingon from Grow Hayes in regards to the project. If you have any specific questions for them, I'm sure Doug would be happy to come up and visit. What I did for you in regards to prior budget years is just gave you an overall perspective of where we were at from 2019 through 2023 in each budget year for remaining expenditures and budget authorities for the general budget of Ellis County. And as you can see, we're usually right at about 5% under our projected budget after all transfers and audit closeouts for those years, with an average of each year at about $1.2 million under budget. It's always great when you're under budget, obviously, but we do have some flexibility there and at the end of each year. Looking at this year, we are 33% of the way through our budget year, and we've only expended 25% of our budget. However, I do want to be aware that that's not a true accurate representation of where we should be at, because once the summer months come open, obviously Public Works starts doing a lot more projects throughout the county, and those expenditures start going up. Payroll prices start going up once we start having longevity payouts, and then most of the holidays are in the later half of the year in those holiday payouts. So our budget, just because it's 25%, although we're 33% of the way of the year, that does not truly make you want to think that we're going to be 8% under budget at the end of the year. What we do have each year to kind of help compensate for if budgets go over, fuel prices skyrocket, we do have some flexibility in our budget on a certain line item called the Budget Stabilization Fund. And the numbers that you see there for each year are about $500,000 to $750,000. And what that is, like I say, you have 20-some budgets within the general fund. If a couple of those budgets go over for whatever reasons, retirements, some of those budgets are 92 to 95% salary cost. For instance, the clerk's office, register of deeds, treasury, the attorney, most of those are primary salary. So if those start going over, the budget stabilization account sort of helps float that overage of some of those departments. So with that, looking at the funding request from Grow Hayes of that $241,000 for the project, determination of where to pay it, when to pay it comes into place if the commission would like to move forward with that. There's a thought that we could budget for it next year, which then may create any type of movement or changes that you want to do within the budget for the next year. If we do it this year, looking at these projections and where we're at, I would say my suggestion, if we do have that funding by the end of the year, that we would make that payment out of this year's budget, which I would believe would also make Grow Hayes happier to have that allocation and that payment made to them. However, with us only being in the month of May, which is almost June already, but we're very early in the year for me to be able to give you a positive outlook of where our budget is at, because through the next 6-7 months, things could drastically change. But looking at where we've been at for the last 5 years, I would say it's highly likely that we would have the budget authority remaining in the general fund to make that allocation to Grow Hayes if the commission would request to do so. So I guess with that, I can take any questions, or if Doug wanted to come up and speak, do that too.
Okay, well, I got a little bit of questions with the budget and how it all works, because we just implemented a massive wage adjustment the first part of April. So was that using 2023 funds because part of that came from our budget stabilization account? Was that out of the 2023, or was that out of 2024 that we're currently operating in, where this would also come out of?
Yep, so that came out of our 2024 budget, and when we prepared the budget in 23 for 24, I always keep a certain amount as a remaining amount each year to be projected to have left in the budget stabilization account. That's what's on that chart for each year. 800,000, 700,000, 600,000 each year. When we did this year's budget in anticipation for the wage adjustments with the compensation study, we started with a higher amount. And I don't remember what that amount was, but we had money set aside specific for the attorneys for making their adjustments. We had the commission made the additional when we were looking at our final budget numbers in late August of last year. We added 250,000 more, and then we started with an additional, I think 600,000 on top of it. So after all of that was made this year, the remaining amount that we currently have in our budget stabilization account after all the wage adjustments is 790,000,
Okay.
which is, of those 5 prior years, that's the second most we've had left in that. We never usually spend out of it, because it's like I say, it's usually there as a buffer in case the overall general budget goes over, and that way we have that extra couple $100,000 to have that stabilization, so we don't have budget overages and then audit and issues there as well.
Okay, so if we, continuing down that line, if we go ahead and use out of that account, will it come directly from our budget stabilization account, or will it come through a different line item within the budget and then move funds from that account over?
Well, it's essentially, when I say account, it's just a line item within our budget. So what I would probably suggest is we just pay it out of the administrator's contingency, and if we wanted to do a budget adjustment, the budget stabilization line never has any expenditures out of it, so I'd hate to put an expenditure in it.
Right.
It's not a big deal. But our administrator's contingency, which is only 140,000, this is more than that. But it's just
And
going to show that line is over for the year, but we would still have that flexibility in the future. I know there's some other items that we'd want to pay for out of contingency that we've talked about, that, for instance, some needed repairs out at the fairgrounds. But like I say, it's not going to impact the overall department that's in, which is the contingency, subsidies, and transfers department.
Okay. And then we're working on possible sale of the Public Works building in the future. Do we have any other sales that we're looking at upcoming before the end of the year?
We may have a Purple Wave if got the new Expedition to replace the Tahoe at EMS. That's the only new vehicle that's been replaced. But other than that, there's no other sale. The Public Works building would most likely fall out into 2025. And the appraisal has been completed on the building. We're waiting on the results to come back. But the plan was this summer, which is coming up here next month or so already. But after that appraisal comes back, then we would be able to go out for a sealed bid process. And that way we can compare the results back for what the appraisal was to see if we were getting it, what the commission would deem a fair value for the building. But we wouldn't move out until December, January of the old building, and then given some flexibility time to get all the equipment and equipment, materials, and everything moved up there to the new facility as well. So that would all be part of the 2025 budget.
Okay.
And if we made this payment, I know that was one of the discussions the commission had is possibly using the sale of the Public Works building, some of the proceeds of that to make this donation here. If this is the case and the commission were to decide to make this year, whatever money that we would sell the Public Works facility, we could budget that in for a line next year and then have that completely transferred to the capital reserve for other future projects that we may have for the jail. Could be a big one coming up.
Okay. Thank you. Gentlemen?
Couple questions. So again, going back to the number you have for budget stabilization. So this is current, what we're projecting at 790, 590.
Yeah, that's to the dollar as of we're sitting today.
Everything, which it won't, but if everything kind of stays like this, we have 790. We take out the 240, we'd be left with 549 budget stabilization.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the other than sales, though, we have potential tax abatements coming back this year too from another transmission line, correct? But we can't really budget that, or
that was in the budget for this year.
Yeah.
Last year's taxes for this year for the transmission line on the west part of the county. Well, I guess it crosses through the county, but that was figured into this budget. And then next year, phase 2 of that project will be implemented so that the taxes that are abated this year will be used for next year's budget.
For 2025 as
Yep.
well. So for 2025, we'll have that and the sale of as a kind of additional revenue that we don't have now.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's I know it's a lot of money for everybody probably listening and for us. The additional revenue from that transmission line was about $350,000. But, with where we're at and today, the amount of money that we're spending on things, the prices of everything going up, that $350,000 on a $30 million budget will be easily absorbed into next year's budget.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess my general thoughts is if we can, I'd like to do this and get it funded. It seems like I'd prefer to just get it in this. We have room in this year's budget to be able to do it. We did what we told taxpayers last year by lowering the mill. We got a balanced budget, and we can get it in there. Still have some budget stabilization, and then that allows us, as we go into our 2025 budget, to keep that focus on the revenues of the sale, whatever tax abatements come through, so we can continue to work with taxpayers on as we lower the mill again additionally, or maybe consider revenue neutral for 2025 or do other projects that we have discussions on roads and bridges. So I think if we can, I want to get this funded. I think it makes more sense to get it funded this year and then have it off our plate to move on to 2025. So those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much my opinion too. It's right there. I'm gonna say that my favorite saying: without Ellis County, City of Hayes don't survive. Grow Hayes is in there. We're all going to be at one point in time in that age group. So I'm also in supportive of it. The numbers show it. And fellow commissioners, I know that we're going to run a tight, flat budget again. So I think just do it and move on and get the facility done.
Okay.
It's one question that I would have is that the commission would be okay with it, just because we are, and this might be something that Doug may want to chime in on, but would it be okay to make the commitment, yes, for the funding, but necessarily wait to make the determination to make the payment until maybe August of this year, when we're 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the budget, to ensure that our financial status is still in the position where we're at today? And then we can either make that payment then in August to Grow Hayes, or if worse comes to worse, something bad does happen, we have to put it into our budget for 2025 and make the payment in January.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah. That's, Bill, on the motion, it kind of makes that, implies that we'd make a motion pending continued positive budget trends. Is that legally an okay way to make a motion? So that way, if something happens and we have to expend our reserves for something else in the county, that we can essentially back out of this obligation.
So, Bill Jeter, County Councilor, your question is, can you commit today and then back out of that later?
Kinda. With the motion pending continued positive
It's-
budget trends, so that way by August or
Well-
September, 2/3 of the way through.
As a policy matter, to me, it's not something you should do, but what's Grow Hayes gonna do if that's what you do? It's not really practical to sue the county over, particularly if your commitment today is subject to the possibility with devastating budget news that you got to back out of it. I would think with what Grow Hayes wants would be a commitment today, with the understanding that you may have to delay payment, or you may have to figure out how you're gonna do it, but it's gonna be done. But I'm speaking for Grow Hayes too.
Doug, would you like to comment on that, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug Williams, Executive Director of Grow Hayes. And I would agree with Bill's sentiment. The best thing that could happen would be that I'd leave this chamber with a check today, knowing that's not going to happen. When it's paid is not as important as that it's going to be paid, that there is a commitment. And if it's a matter of getting to the end of the year and seeing if budgets are where they are, and if they are great, it's paid out. If they're not, it's figured out into the 2025 budget or something like that. We certainly have that level of flexibility. The concept of it not being ever paid would be problematic for us, obviously, because we would be going forward counting on that. But I think we can all go forward knowing that the best intentions are that this is going to be taken care of, and we just don't know exactly how or when, but we can live with that. But the commitment is the important thing, as Mr. Jeter noted.
I'm probably getting into semantics again, but probably again, ultimately doesn't matter. But would a consensus today that we will fund it suffice, or is a motion needed for you to be able to present to, I think, the city and to, I think, one of the foundations?
The commitments we have from the Schmidt Foundation as well as the city is that we have to get to that $6 million level. And so, and we are consistently working on raising other funds, but if we have the commitment from the county, we will have achieved that level, and that would trigger those, their commitments. So whether a commitment is a consensus or a motion, I'll refer back to Mr. Jeter again, but I would think that it would be a motion and not a consensus.
A consensus would be a decision by a majority of the board that they would intend, as of right now, to approve it at some time in the future. So it's not really a commitment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what Mr. Williams is telling you, he needs a commitment, or he would like a commitment.
I would love a commitment.
Well, then I'll give it to you. I move to fund the Grove Community Center project, $241,605 for the 2024 budget, pending continued positive budget trends.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion before we move to a vote? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate your support.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next topic is our road tour discussion topics. Aaron?
Moving on, just as a recap from the April 23rd, 2024 road tour that the commissioners and some of Public Works staff attended. We have some action items that were discussed at the road tour that bring back to open session, just to ensure that we are transparent and making sure that the actions taken or suggested to be taken at the road tour in special session would come back to open session for a direction from the commission. And I was gonna say he's back there somewhere. I did text Brendan this morning if there are any specific questions that, in regards to the road construction, that may be asked, that if he could be here. But mainly the two biggest items on here are the Vineyard Road project and 48th Street. Vineyard Road, just for some of those that may be listening, is the 41st Street ends up being Vineyard Road, just to the east side of Home Depot. As you transfer to that next mile line at 260th, that's the City of Hayes right-of-way and owned property. From 260th to 270th on Vineyard Road is Ellis County. And then at that intersection going back south to the interstate on Commerce Parkway is also a county road. Between 260th and 270th on Vineyard Road, the Public Works staff has already pulled the ditches and resurfaced the road and tried to do some dust control on that. The discussion on that at the road tour was the thought of when KDOT potentially resurfaces Highway 183 from Hayes up to Plainville next year, that we might be able to piggyback onto that state contract with, if that project gets approved and funded through KDOT, that we could possibly piggyback onto the back end of that project and have them resurface those sections of road east of Home Depot to a hot mix asphalt. And by doing that, that would be done sometime in 2025. We would then add it to our capital through our budget process this year. But in preparation for that, if that's the true direction the commission would like us to move on, is some preliminary work that was done that we talked about during the road tour that Brendan would need to know, so that way they could start planning out their year. Because we would have to work with the City of Hayes to get part of their section of road reshaped, as well as 270th, do some analysis on the drainage culverts. And then on 48th Street, the same thing. If we move over to that section, we currently have a grant pending with KDOT to completely resurface that into a concrete road. We've been trying that for multiple years. It keeps getting denied. But possibly piggyback on with this project as well is have 48th Street from Tractor Supply to Hall Street completely milled down and resurfaced with a hot mix, and doing some preliminary work there, doing some core drilling and sampling to see how much it need to be milled down and overlay, so that way we can start working on the planning for that. So with those items 1 and 2, just wanting to see if that's the direction that the commission would like to do for 48th Street and Vineyard Road.
Brendan, do you mind stepping up for if you've got questions?
Brenda McKay, Public Works Director.
Good morning.
Morning.
If we go ahead with the Vineyard Road and the Commerce, if we go that direction and are able to piggyback, what type of time frame are you looking at? Would you have enough with the Public Works to get that road prepped and ready for a hot mix?
Yes. So what we did for the base work on that 1 mile, it can be done to the other miles. It may not need to be, it's not necessary for that to happen before a hot mix overlay would go in place. It would just need to be there's a few areas where there's some soft spots. We'd basically just reshape the roadway, get the profile correct, because the profile for a hot mix road is different than an unpaved road. So it'd have less crown in it, but there'd still be some crown. So we'd have to address the amount of crown in the roadway before a hot mix overlay could go on it. But that's not an issue.
Okay, would we then, because we have in here right-of-way acquisition, would we have like a shoulder on the side of that roadway then, or?
We can have whatever we'd like. So normal roadway width is 24 feet. That roadway's wider than 24 foot wide as it is. So you'd have an aggregate shoulder. It wouldn't be a paved shoulder unless the commission wanted to go that direction.
Okay.
As far as the right-of-way, I mean, looking into the future, are we gonna acquire some more, in case that road ever does get widened out? I mean, would that be a good idea right now?
At this point in time, right now, how that road exists there's a 40-foot right-of-way from 260th to 270th on Vineyard Road or 41st Street. 40-foot right-of-way is what the statute roads were first decided as. To be a public roadway now, if it was a road that had never been opened before, it's a minimum of 60 feet. The amount of traffic on that road, I'd recommend that minimum of 60 feet or even potentially more, like a 66 or an 80-foot right-of-way, similar to all the rest of the FAS routes within the county. As it is right now, the ditches are off on private. The landowners have allowed us to install those and maintain them on private. It's a benefit for the traveling public, so we're able to do that. The right-of-way would never hurt.
Okay.
But depending upon the drainage structures, that's really where we'll need to acquire additional easements or temporary easements, depending upon how far we want to go out with those. Because most county roads are built to a 5 to a 15-year flooding event. Interstate builds to 500 and 700-year flooding events. I'm not saying we go that far out, but maybe we increase it to a 25 or 50-year flooding event and have to increase our drainage size of the structures along that path.
Okay, I guess I'm just picturing something for in the future. Commerce Parkway going out to Reservation Road, something like that for, like, say, for future for
Yeah.
our.
So Commerce Parkway has 66 feet of right-of-way. That's an FAS route. Vineyard is just that stretch that the county owns a vineyard. That mile is 40 feet. When you get past 260th intersection, the city has 100 feet right-of-way. They require 100 feet of right-of-way for their roadways.
Okay.
So the majority of the utilities are already outside of the scope of what an overlay project would be for that, even including the additional size for the drainage structures required.
Okay.
Because as you go bigger, you have to go out further to increase your footprint and also funnel the water to them.
Okay.
So some of the culverts may turn into boxes. I don't think we should go to the point where we install bridges on there, just because of how flat that area is. If we put a bridge somewhere, the water may cut a different path over time as that area is developed.
Yeah.
But increasing the size of the boxes that are along that stretch may not be a bad idea.
There is a representative in the audience out here, Mr. Cook. Is that going to interfere with the power line, and not only that, the new gas line that we're putting in there, if we can acquire some more right-of-way?
I have to see the details.
Okay.
I looked at it last week where they have flagged the new gas line. That appears to be far enough out for the 60-foot right-of-way that we would want for that roadway. But unless you guys are moving it somewhere else where you have flagged.
Justin McDonald, Midwest Energy. It's just a happy coincidence I'm here today. The official answer is I'd really have to see the details. There's no plan to change or what we were already doing at this time, but if there are any details that we'd need to see, I'd be happy to look through them and pass those along.
And all Currently, utilities out there for Midwest Energy are off right away or plan being off right away. So if we did need to increase our size and have them relocated, it'd be at the county's cost, not Midwest Energy's cost, to relocate those utilities.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
guess
sure if
I'm just looking at it, to do it right the first time so we don't have to pay for it again. So, yeah, sorry, Darren, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if Mr. McDonald was the one, but when I visited with Arlen Flax last week, just to get an idea, the new high transmission line will be going up north. It'll be on the west side of 270th. And I don't remember the terminology, but because the new gas line, being steel, has to be 60 feet away, so the gas line will be on the east side of 270th going north. And that they do have it all staked out, I believe, last week or so. But with the thought of the commission having this, Arlen Flax suggested that if the commission wants to proceed, then Brendan and I would be back in contact with Arlen, and he said he would get his higher-ups, and we'd go out there and have a meeting, because I believe they were going to start on that gas line next month. Projected.
That is my understanding as well, yes.
So we can go out there and start having some preliminary conversations with Midwest Energy to make sure that we're working together on it.
And Commerce south of Interstate, is that, you said 66 or is that 80?
Commerce south of Interstate is 100 feet. That's a city road. North of Interstate, Commerce or 270th is 66 feet of right of way. From Airbase north,
Should we possibly look at the 100-foot right-of-way?
no. I wouldn't recommend that at this point in time. You have a lot of utilities that were bought on private. The 100-foot right-of-way is for the city to have utilities in their right-of-way. There's a lot of utilities already out there that are running private. If we increase to 100 feet, which we don't need for the roadway, the county would be paying for all those utilities to be relocated.
Okay.
So I don't see the benefit in us increasing that right-of-way to 100 feet at this point in time. The additional cost we would pay to relocate utilities that, without having sidewalks or third lanes or dedicated turning lanes and parking lanes like you have in a city, there's no benefit for the cost the county would incur with that.
Okay.
So from the corner back west to 260th, are you going to do a 66 so it's all the same, or are you going to?
That's up to the three of you to decide if that's how you'd like me to pursue or not.
The 80, what would happen with the 80 then? Are we going to interfere with a bunch of utilities at the 80?
More than likely, yes.
Okay.
I don't think you'll have any problem acquiring the easement, because then people all want a bypass around town, and plus the individuals that live there. But that's easier said than done.
Yep.
One other question, and it's not really addressed in the agenda item, but it's the quarter mile from Interstate north on Commerce to that intersection. Would we try and put that in with the whole overlay and everything?
We could. We just overlaid that this past year
Okay.
and did repairs to it. So would it be beneficial to? More than likely, yes, but we'll have to see where costs come in.
Because it would just kind of tie it all together nicely
Okay.
then.
The only concern would be about allowing traffic through, or it's an interstate exit, so it's going to place some challenge for traffic control in order to keep it open or restrict traffic from getting off there.
Darren, has there been any discussion with the city somewhat on this?
Yes, sir. At the retreat that we had several months ago, it was suggested by the commission that we have a joint meeting with the city of Hayes, and I've spoken to the city manager about that. Still working on agenda items and topics of discussion to have that in possibly June or July or August before either one of our budgets are complete. So that way, if there are any discussions of projects that would have budget implications, each agency could visit about it. For the Vineyard Road project, specific to that part, the almost a half a mile section that the city owns, although I've given him budget estimates for what the overall project would cost if we went back with if we were to seal it and do a cold mix and then seal it again. they would be interested in funding the portion of their road. We would do the preliminary work to get it ready, and then they would potentially pay for the cost of their section. And then for 48th Street, we do have that in for a grant where the city has committed, I believe it was 200,000 as part of that grant to KDOT. So they do have that as part of that as well. And if we don't get that grant for 48th Street, that was about a $2.1 million project, and local match, we had 600 for the county and 200,000 for the city. Obviously, we don't know if we got the grant or how much the bid would be, but if we didn't get that to complete reconstruction with concrete, it would probably, for the same amount of road, essentially on 48th Street, is the same amount that we did on Shinshin Road from 183 into town. The same distance of road, however, we may be milling deeper, and that means replacing more hot mix on top of it. That stretch of road was only $180,000. So I would think potentially maybe, I have no idea, 250,000 to 300. So it's significantly less than either one of us have budgeted for that road to go back with the mill and overlay. I couldn't speak to what 40 or Vineyard Road and Air Base would be, but if you do the math, the same amount. It's a little bit different of a project because we're not milling, but we're putting new road down. We're doing some of the prep work.
Yeah, we would basically, if we do it with piggybacking off a state contract, we would do all the prep work and basically put a seal coat on the roadway or a prime coat, and then the contract would come in with their paving machine and just lay down and roll out over the top of it, and it would be what it would be.
Okay.
So both of them would be significantly less doing it this way.
Utilizing county force is the reason it's mainly, biggest reason why it's less. It's because we're not paying for the contractor to haul and mobilize a lot more equipment and staff, and for traffic control, it's basically, we'll be handling all of those phases of it. They're just coming in and putting the material down pretty quick.
I think it's a good move. I like the idea of trying to maximize the amount of right-of-way that we can establish. So if it's 66 to match up other areas, great. But I just assume we go with the largest amount of right-of-way possible.
If we do that, it's going to be unnecessary in most portions of that roadway. You'll need additional amounts potentially by larger drainage structures. But if we increase it just across the board all the way through there, we're not going to see a benefit out of it. We're only just going to see extra costs incurred for relocating utilities that don't need to be relocated at that point in time.
Well, the one thing I don't want to see is what's happened in the past when there's areas where there's, larger amounts of right-of-way and narrower amounts of right-of-way, and you can see the utilities jag in and out of those areas. Right. And the way that maintenance is performed can be tricky in those areas as well.
Correct.
So if we could standardize it as a certain amount all the way through, I think that would be probably best.
Okay.
Would our standard amount be, would you say 66 feet?
60 to 66 feet for an FAS route.
So
I think that's what we need to look at.
that's what we have from Air Base to Vineyard on 270th. We have 66 already. So we would, from Vineyard Road from 260th to 270th, we would increase that to from 40 to 66. And then the city, for their section, they already have 100. So it'll just be that 1 mile stretch of road that we would do the 66 feet on. If that's agreeable
That
by
way
the
it would be
commission.
best for the county. We're not incurring the cost to relocate these utilities that don't
Right.
need to be relocated for our maintenance activities. And it could be the developer or whoever develops those areas, residential or commercial, when they need those utilities moved for their entrances or for the city if it annexes, they would put that in the specials for those developers to pay for the cost to relocate.
That makes sense. Okay.
Justin, thank you, and sorry for calling you Mr. Cook, but there's only, 5, 6, 7 Justins in Midwest, so I apologize for that.
Okay, and then on 48th Street, the mill and overlay, do we think our base is, or is that why we're looking at maybe getting some preliminary core drilling done?
We're assuming the base is good just because how it was constructed and the failures we're seeing of the roadway. It's not a base failure, it's an asphalt failure.
Okay.
If it was a base failure, you'd see more rutting, pushing, and you'd see map cracks. You've got transverse and longitudinal cracks, which is the asphalt not stretching and shrinking with temperature changes and
Okay.
load changes on the roadway. So with that would be a potentially 2-inch or 3-inch mill. Because the way those cracks formed from the asphalt failure, they keyhole or wedge shape. So wider at the top, shallower at the bottom. If we just cover it over as it is, those cracks will continue to be visible through the new pavement. So the intent is to cut down to where they're a smaller size that can be properly crack filled and sealed, and then come over with new material, and those cracks would hopefully not propagate through the new surface. They're less likely to.
Was that a hot mix in the prior?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the best case scenario is to piggyback and redo a hot mix. I mean, rather than our cold mix, I guess our primo would be going with the concrete.
Yeah, the reason it's such a big price difference is because it's all contract forces, no county involvement, and it's total reconstruction from basically rebuilding the base and then new existing roadway, 8 to 10 inch thick concrete. This is 2 to 4 inches of cut and refill.
Okay.
And then utilizing county forces for the majority of it saves a lot of overall cost out of our budget. Because we'll spend that money regardless with our employees, but if I can utilize my staff and my equipment to save my capital fund, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
But there again, is that discussion with the city when we can visit with them on, okay?
Yeah, because right now that road is landlocked by city limits.
Mm-hmm.
Hall Street up to 52nd Street has been taken over by the city because they've annexed the portion for the National Guard facility, and then 1A3 is the state. And the city owns that little bit of entirely up to Tractor Supply. And from past Tractor Supply, they own the south half for about 75% of that roadway.
Brendan, do you think it's a wise idea if we can get this and kind of piggyback 48th and Vineyard Road and Commerce? You think that is a little bit more enticing for the whole project?
Not necessarily, no. If we were doing it ourselves, not trying to piggyback, then yes, it'd be more beneficial to tie those two together. But with us trying to piggyback off state work in the area, it makes no difference doing one or doing both.
Okay.
Trying to tie them together.
Okay.
So we could potentially tie in with the state for the asphalt work that's going on for Fairground Road for the 157 overpass realignment for 48th Street. If we get results back from the grant later this year that we weren't selected, we can work with that contractor for that stretch. And then when they do 183 north of town here in the upcoming years, talk with that contractor to see if they're willing. We can want to do it. It's still up to the contractor to decide that they're willing to accept it too.
Okay.
They can tell us no.
Understood.
So that's keeping in contact with them and who gets the bid. And keeping in contact with them early is going to be our best benefit, which we do.
Okay.
Any idea what the traffic count is on that right now? Because you go out there and it's
Lots.
crazy.
So I've shown you the map,
Yes?
and all three of you, our map of our FAS routes with the KDOT estimate. Some of that was based off of traffic counts the county has taken. Some of it's based off of traffic counts the state has done themselves. I can't give you an accurate one as of today, but it's something that we'll be going in the future here, doing more of. When we get the green light from KDOT to reassess our road inventory, we'll be putting out traffic counters on a lot of these key areas.
Okay.
Okay.
Thoughts, concerns?
No, I think that works. We should certainly look into it.
Okay.
I guess just as a clarification, this isn't committing us to doing either of these projects. It's just giving us the go-ahead that your intentions was that you would like to do this for future capital projects and just getting some of this preliminary work out of the way. So that way, if and when the KDOT does come through and we are able to piggyback off of it, we have a lot of this work done. So that way his staff isn't rushed to get the road reshaped and core drill sampled. You know, we can try to get all that preliminary work done ahead of time. So that way we're just a few steps ahead for when that time does come.
You know, and that, I guess looking at into the future with the new high school slash other school, there's gonna be a lot of people taking that route.
Correct.
Because it's getting congested, so.
Yeah, it's our heaviest trafficked unpaved road in the county. It's also only 40-foot right away.
I think we need to go ahead and address the right of way and go ahead with preliminary engineering, some drainage, some core sampling, whatever we need there, kind of as we have presented here. So,
And to add to that, like say, have some discussion with the city on it and work together.
so I guess this is what you would call the consensus, is that correct?
The Christmas wish list.
Okay.
Then the last item on the agenda is, or the last item for discussion is the 12th Street Bridge. When we were out there, the commission looked at that in regards to previous discussions of keeping it open or closing it, using it for other grants throughout the county. And at that discussion, when we were underneath the bridge talking about it, the commission had the consensus at the road session to keep that bridge open and not use it for the Saline River Bridge grant. So just wanted to make sure that that was still the consensus of the commission, and the plan would be to keep 12th Street Bridge open and move forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like to see it this time.
Other than that, that's all I have, unless Brendan, if I forgot anything that.
No, I know we had talked about the bridge grant application. So our off-system bridge grant, we have 3 structures that are eligible here in Ellis County, 2 stone arches and 1 small structure on the county line with Trigo. That we're going to be applying for one of those stone arches this year. The bridge that's on the county line is actually being turned in for closure for the KLBIP for the off-system bridge, or for the Saline River Bridge. That's the one that the channel has moved, shifted away from that structure that was built in the 40s. Water does not run underneath there. It's going to be replaced with a 6-foot culvert if selected.
Okay.
So that Saline River Bridge is what we're applying for. We've met with landowners. We're looking at doing an offset alignment or parallel alignment. There's already a dog leg in the road. There'll be a new dog leg if we're approved, and don't have numbers, but expect north of $5 million for that new structure. So, and then the county's share is 15% of that. So I'll have to make some changes to the capital because we're not getting as much for the closure, because you get $1,000 per linear foot of bridge, and it was on with 12th Street as closure, and then with us going with a total replacement and not a rehabilitation, because the state has not awarded rehabilitations in those last few rounds.
Okay.
So I'll have to increase that there here this fall.
Okay.
Which direction is that dogleg going to be on the west or east side?
We're looking at the east side.
Okay.
There's fiber and other utilities run to the west.
Yep.
And apparently, talking with Mr. Joy up there, he recalls the old structure being to the east too. So that one was built in the 40s, current existing structure, late 40s, early 50s. Prior to that, there was a much smaller structure to the east, so we're going to have to do some investigating there to make sure our spans will clear that old structure. And that way, we won't have to deal with a shoe fly down in the river bottom trying to climb up a steep hill. When construction takes probably about a year to rebuild that bridge. So we'll leave the existing structure there, build a new bridge off parallel to that one, and offset alignment, and then reconnect the roadway to the new structure when it's complete, if we're approved.
Okay.
Yeah, at least up there we won't have a 10 or 15 mile detour if you
Up there, yeah, you won't have it. Well, it's for construction, you won't. But
Yeah.
yeah, if that bridge fails between us getting selected or us paying to rehabilitate, it's a lengthy detour.
Brendan, with the flow of the water, the direction it is, will we need to remove that old structure?
That would be best. So it'll be put in. We're applying with the grant with that as an alternate
Okay.
to tear that out, just because we want to be as close to the old structure as possible, but not too close where the structure of that other bridge are going to impact water flows and create scour holes. It's best to remove it if you can, or put it far enough away. We can't go far enough away it's not realistic for us to go far enough away where that structure could be left behind permanently.
Got it. Okay. And since we have you up here, quick update for everybody who may be listening. South Ellis Avenue, we're open again?
Yep, open last week. We're still doing some touch-ups and just general maintenance to it, but it's open to public traffic. We put a reduced speed limit on it. Well, we have a lot of equipment still out there, but people should slow down when there's equipment on the road anyways. But it's a couple soft areas we're working through and seem to be coming out just fine.
Okay. Very good. Nothing a little rain wouldn't help settle in.
Yeah, a little more traffic, they'll help settle it down too with us and the rollers as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay. Well, is there anything else before we move on to the administrator's report?
No, unless there's anything I may have missed from the road tour that the commission would like to bring up to discuss, but those were looking at the minutes and the notes that I had written down throughout the day, those were the ones that we just needed direction on before we proceeded with anything.
Okay. All right, county administrator report then. No report? Okay, commission reports, Mr. Burgess?
Yeah, I did have coffee with city commissioners Mason and Sandy, and a big part of our conversation was 41st and 48th and roads, so I think they're looking forward. I know Darren's reached out, and they're looking forward to having a joint meeting as well to kind of figure out these roads around the city and county. I had a quick call with Kalen Landreth. He's with Northwest Kansas Economic Innovation Center. He's tasked with different projects, and I just had a conversation with him about what other counties or cities are doing as far as economic growth. There are some county incentives out there that Northwest, the Innovation Center, kind of works with, but unfortunately Ellis and Saline County are not part of those, being the more populous of the counties, of the 26 counties they cover. But we had a nice discussion, just kind of looking just at different options other than RAWs and scholarships and other things that might be out there, just trying to keep the wheels turning on ideas. Attended the ribbon cutting for High Plains Mental Health. They'll have a masquerade celebrating, I missed it, 60 years, 70 years?
Yeah.
So on, I think, June 3rd. There's a masquerade. I think they have tickets, so look into that if you enjoy getting out on the town. And then I presented the Ellis High School scholarships to 3 seniors last week, and the one gentleman who got the NCK Tech, he did not know he was getting one, and I think it was the only scholarship he got, and he was pretty thrilled that he got one. So it was a good day to be around those kids. So that's what I got.
Very good. Mr. Younger?
Okay, I also went to the ribbon cutting at the mental health. What I really got out of it, and I don't know if Commissioner Burgess did, but they're starting to do fundraisers, so which is good to, whatever funding they get, they're putting in addition to, so I like that. Also, I did go to Midwest Energy, got a grant awarded for $8.8 million for 68 miles of rehab gas line in 3 other counties in Ellsworth, Barton, and part of Russell. So then I also did go to the Victoria graduation Sunday. I was impressed. There was, small town, there were 16 graduates. Out of 16 of them, 5 of them are going with hands-on. So whether it be construction, truck driving, nursing, it floored me that there was that many that were getting back into our workforce that are going to use hands-on. The other deal is I did go to the Shenshin meeting last night. And then if anybody gets a chance, since Northwest Kansas Juvenile and Correction, moved into Don Staub's old office, which is on, 13th and Oak, you'll be impressed in there. Before, when they were down here on Fort Street, if somebody walked in there, they would walk by every one of them people's offices. Now it's very secure. I'm happy to see that. So if anybody gets a chance, go there, and either Erin or one of her colleagues can lead you around in there. So that was another impressive addition to Hayes. So that's all I have.
Okay. I too attended the Midwest Energy Grant acceptance and approval. And then I attended Victoria High School award ceremony and handed out 3 scholarships there. So like Mr. Burgess said, it was good to go and hand out the awards and see the response. So I think that was a very well received gesture that we did for the community and the county this year. So, okay, with that, we have one executive session.
Okay, motion for the executive session pursuant to attorney-client privilege exception. The subject to be discussed during the executive session is the contract negotiations. Those in attendance, in addition to the Board of the County Commissioners, are Mr. Bill Jeter, Mr. Darren Myers, and it'll be 10 minutes, so let's go 9:38.
No decisions were reached. Meeting will adjourn at 9:40.